What's up everyone, Slasher Movies here. We're in the thick of the best, the worst, the most anticipated list, but of course before I can give you my favorite films of the year, I have to give you my worst. So here are my top 10 worst films of 2017. Now look, I know some people feel like these kind of lists are a bit mean-spirited, and in a way, yes, they kind of are. But for me, this is a great way to compile a bunch of the movies that I saw, the ones that I didn't enjoy, and just say, hey, if you come across these films, you're better off watching something else. Because most of these films I didn't even review in 2017, so this is just a way for me to play catch up on some films that I honestly wanted to do videos for. So of course, before we begin, let's shout out a few dishonorable mentions. Those films are Flatliners, Rings, 50 Shades Darker, Geostorm, and Suburbicon. Now, starting my list off at number 10, I have Justice League. Look, Wonder Woman might have been great and all, but man, does this DC Cinematic Universe just need to press reset, reboot, something. They gotta stop what they're doing. This was a train wreck. This is probably the ugliest blockbuster I saw in 2017. The effects were weak. The actors didn't look like they really wanted to be there. Like, everything about this movie was lackluster. The jokes were bad. The story was incompetent at times. These are beloved characters. People waited for this film for so long, and man, do I feel like the fan base deserves a lot more than this. Coming in at number 9, I have Downsizing. Look, I like Alexander Payne a lot. I think he's a talented director, but man, was this movie so pretentious. It's all it cares about is preaching a message and not telling a cohesive story that every 15 minutes feels like a different movie that's beginning, and characters come in, they come out, it's jam-packed with cameos that really just plague the film down. This movie was so boring, so uninteresting. The jokes are all the same. I didn't like any of the characters in this film. Everything just was bad. Coming in at number 8 is Baywatch. Oh my goodness. In terms of big budgeted mainstream comedies, this one just was completely unfunny. It felt 3 hours long. The jokes were all the same. Maybe it's just me, but I don't like drug subplots in movies. Like, it just feels like been there, done that. And to be honest, when I'm watching a movie like Baywatch, I want to see Baywatch. I want to see shenanigans happening on the beach. I don't want to see these people becoming like espionage spies trying to bring down some drug overlord. It just didn't feel like Baywatch. And the number 7 is The Book of Henry. This one hurts because it almost hurts putting this movie on my list, because it's a movie where it kind of has heart, and it tries to think that its heart's in the right place, but what you end up getting is just this bonkers Tommy Wiseau is the Room level of obscurity. Like, this is the kind of movie, like, in 20 years from now, I could generally see, being put back into theaters as people just sit there to laugh at. Because the direction that the story goes and the things that characters do in this movie is just absolutely bonkers, but it's taken for, like, sentimental and to be this emotionally manipulative film, which it's all weird and bizarre, and the things that the kids do, the things Naomi Watts says, it's just completely campy. Like, this is a movie, like, you almost can't believe what you're watching when you're sitting in the theater watching it. It's one of those expectations versus reality type of films where you could clear that the filmmakers thought they were making this, but they really ended up making this. Number 6 is Transformers: The Last Knight. Now, I know a lot of people have been putting this movie at their number 1 spot, and rightfully so. Man, oh man, by every Transformers film I see, every time I come out, I get more sick and more nauseous and more just like on the verge of death. But I generally almost had to leave the theater because I felt like I was gonna puke just by the overload of 3D and visuals and jokes, and like Anthony Hopkins, like, y'all know, like, I love that man. He literally played, in my opinion, the greatest character and gave the greatest performance in cinematic history. What he does in this movie was terrifying, nightmare inducing. Like, coming in at number 5, I have the Emoji Movie. Oh my god, is this movie absolutely just commercialized product placement. Everything about this movie, in my opinion, is just wrong. You should not let your kids watch this movie. I am not a fan of the message that this movie preaches, how this movie utilizes things like Spotify and Twitter and all these social media sites as a way to tell its story is just bad. It's bad. It's saying, you know, you're not you unless you're attached to some sort of device to speak through. Coming in at number 4 is We Are the Flesh. Now, this is a movie most of you people probably have never even heard of, and for the people who have heard of this, I'm curious to know which side of the spectrum you are, because when I went into the theater, I saw so many 5-star reviews on Letterboxd. I was like, well, I gotta go see this. And then I watched it at 2016 Fantastic Fest, and boy oh boy was this an assault to the eyes. I don't mind movies that are an assault, that are visceral, that are intense, that are in a sense pornographic, where I'm watching sex and all this stuff, as long as I have a rhyme and a reason to be watching this. This movie felt like it just wanted to be visceral, wanted to be assaulting just for the fact of being assaulting. This movie has it all. From ejaculation on people, to incest, to orgies. Problem is, this movie has no rhyme or reason for it. If it does, I clearly missed the allegory for whatever this movie was trying to say. You've got to have a purpose for whatever art you're creating, and I couldn't get behind this movie. Coming in at number 3, I have The Bye Bye Man. Look, I don't know what I can say that I haven't already said. This movie is so dumb. It really dumbs down the horror audience. It plays them for cheap tricks. It's incompetently made. The effects are cheap. The scares are worse. Like, everything about this movie is so bad to the point that I even went on this channel and ripped up the poster, because that's how just upset I was after this movie. It's an interesting concept that could have made for a really fun time, and they squander all the hope out of it in this film. Coming in at number 2 is The Snowman. Boy oh boy, if there was one movie that should have been just a confirmed hit, it should have been this. I mean, this director has made some great films, but what happened? I know that they said they did film, but 10 or 15% of the script didn't make it into the actual film, and I get that that's a problem. That's a big red flag. When the producers aren't giving you enough time to shoot your movie, that's a problem. And I know it shows in this film, but I don't know if it honestly would have saved this movie, because this movie is so incompetent. Like, all the actors look completely lost to the point where it's laughable. It's so boring and dry, and there's no real meat going on. 2017 was a year where you had some great films, but to be honest, the bad films are almost borderline iconic. And of course, we've come to the bottom line, my least favorite movie of the year. And I know in terms of other films, you're like, man, those films are much worse. You're being a little too hard. I don't care. My least favorite movie of 2017 is The Dark Tower. Look, ladies and gentlemen, I have read the book series by Stephen King. That book series is bonkers, beautiful, wild, just absorbing, and it's so incredible. And what happens in this movie was an assault. I was foaming out of the mouth in just the first 5 minutes of this movie. Look, I appreciate book-to-movie adaptations that actually make changes in a sense and try to enhance the story, in which this dumbs it down. This condenses it and takes out the heart and the passion and everything that made The Dark Tower, the themes, the messages, everything gets muddled and confused. Idris Elba was uninteresting to watch. The kid was borderline good or bad. Matthew McConaughey is just terrible in this movie. So bad. It might honestly be one of the worst movies I've ever seen. So you guys, there you have it. That was my top 10 worst films of 2017 list. Let me know in the comment section below what films really disappointed you and you just were not a fan of in 2017. You could clearly tell I just want to get this list over with and get it out there. So until next time, you guys, I'm the Slasher Movie Reviewer, and you guys have just been slashed.